Wow, good evening. After an introduction like that, a wiser man would just exit the stage and keep on going out the door. Marshall, thank you so very much for that larger-than-life introduction and just for your leadership and for putting this together, this program tonight. Anything that Marshall Williams is involved with, you know it's going to be first class. I'm so very honored to join you tonight for this very special program. And I want to thank all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules, especially braving the cold and the I-95 south and northbound traffic on a Friday afternoon to be able to be here. It's very special for me. And I'd like to acknowledge three great gentlemen who were responsible for this program tonight. And of course, that's Mr. Lyle Hogue, Dr. David Fry, and Mr. Marshall Williams. Please, let's give them a round of applause. You know, as I was here listening a little bit to this distinguished panel before me, I thought for a few minutes I'd been set up here. Let me thank these university presidents, not only for the role that you play each and every day, but the enormous impact you have on the lives of thousands of young men and women. Those you don't even know that you impact, that they go on and do great things in life. It's a privilege to meet you, to listen to you on the panel, and just thank you for what you do. And to President, get the right name here, President Jenkins. What an extraordinary story, life story, as you talk about the impact and your mother, the university, and the United States Army, and what you learned in the United States Army. We could have used that as a commercial. You know, I often would say everything I learned about leadership, I learned on Arden Street in the 82nd Airborne Division. So I want you to meet the Commanding General of the Cadet Command, Major General Maurice Barnett. Maurice, stand up. This young man has responsibility for all cadets across the nation for the Army. And certainly, he could use you, Mr. President, on some of his commercials. So I made this connection there because we, in all seriousness, we need your story for our young men and women to understand whether they enter ROTC, as I was going to do just for a couple of years, or they stay for a lifetime in a career, as I did for 36 years. Had no idea. It does change your life in a huge and positive way. And you just never know. You might end up as a university president. So thanks again for all of you and your wonderful, wonderful stories. I also want to recognize, when Marshall reached out to me, for those who know him, he's very hard to say no to. And he reaches out every now and then, and other organizations we're privileged to work together. And when he calls, it's hard to say no. And when he called, I said, okay, what is he going to ask me? But this time he had a very unique approach. He said, General Vi, he said, sir, I know you've been retired now for a few years, but do you still believe in the American dream? And I said, well, yes, Marshall. I still believe in the American dream. He said, well, General Vi, do you still believe in the Constitution of the United States? And I said, of course, Marshall. He said, General Vi, sir, do you still believe in free speech? To which I responded, absolutely. He said, well, good. We want you to come down to the Fort Belvoir and it worked very well because I'm here. So Marshall, great approach. Thanks so much for extending the invitation for me to be here. You know, when I reviewed the invitation list, as I always try to do before these events, I noted there was a large group of very distinguished people attending tonight. And that's our cadets. You all please stand so we can recognize you. Thank you. Yes, make no mistake. You can sit down now. Make no mistake. While there are some very important people here, some very distinguished guests and officials, you truly are the distinguished guests for us because you are the future. In the United States Army, the future matters. And so your being here is so very special. However, I have to adhere to protocol. And to all of our very distinguished guests who are here, and I want to start first with Sergeant First Class Melvin Morris. I think sometimes people can easily forget what a tremendous honor it is to meet a living Medal of Honor recipient. And sometimes I don't think we do enough to make sure our young people know the service and the sacrifice, the enormous sacrifice these men and women make. So, sir, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for your service to our nation. Please join me in a round of applause. We also have my former boss, General Kip Ward. When you heard a lot of those things that Marshall Williams was talking about, I had the good privilege of working for this man at least 3 times, but extraordinary leader. Sir, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be here tonight as well. Please join me in a round of applause. And again, as we talked about the universities, as you've already heard, I graduated from that other little university on the hill, Virginia State University, high above the Appomattox. And so I'm proud to represent that university as I continue in my retirement and opportunities to be able to spread the good news of the work that they do. Last, but certainly not least, Mr. and Mrs. Rick Collins. You know how truly special it is to have you all here tonight. I think it was 2015, I commissioned the class of Bowie State. And there was this young man that I met there that was assisting in the ceremony, in the program. And there was their son. And I think I would do about 5 commissioning ceremonies each year. This is a big deal for me. I remember when I was commissioned, we had Brigadier General Robinson commission our class, and I had never seen a black general. I hadn't seen a general, but here this man was commissioning, and I made it a point to ensure that I made time. And when I was there at that ceremony, I met this young man. And when you meet people, there's something that stands out about certain people, and something stood out about him. Maybe I saw a little of myself in him, 36-year soldier, at the end of my career, and I saw this young man just at the beginning of his. But it stood out. And in that few minutes I had the time with him, I didn't know, but I knew he was on his way. I just had that sense he was on his way. And so when I received the tragic news it's senseless. And this extraordinary impact that this young man, I know he was going to make, but he still continues to make through the foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in recognizing this wonderful couple here tonight. Now for the cadets. Up front, I want to address what I know is foremost on your minds. and that is, how long is this general going to talk? Let's be real. You all got up at dark 30 this morning, showered and put on your uniform, got on a bus or a van and you rode to Washington, D.C. You toured the museum, the African American Museum of History and Culture, and then you got back on the bus or the van. Somewhere in there you checked your iPhone a few times to see if you missed anything in the world today. And then you came to this museum and you did a tour. Then you had a panel. And then you're sitting down at dinner. And then you're looking at your watch and saying, now we got, let me see, it's 1937, and now we got to listen to this general talk. And you know tomorrow morning you got to get up very early again and start all over to go to the Holocaust Museum. So I just want to let you know, yes, I was a cadet once, and it's not lost on me the significant challenge I have right now. Because my job is, I hope, my mission is to finish talking before you finish listening. So understanding and appreciating all of this, I can assure you that I'll speak no longer than about 50 minutes. No, really? You've had a very long day, and an even longer day tomorrow. So I'll be brief, because having reviewed your itinerary, I think, and with your visits to all that you've done thus far in the museums, that experience alone will provide far more knowledge and insights than the few remarks I will share with you tonight. First of all, please allow me to commend you for participating in this program. Whether you were volunteered, whether you volunteered or you were voluntold, I'm not certain which way. In the future, I think as you reflect back on this cold weekend and this museum and this experience as a whole, these 2 days will be among the most impactful and thought-provoking in your post-secondary education, in your cadet experience. Having had the privilege of serving our nation in uniform for 36 years, as I reflect on the state of our nation today, and having witnessed some of the things that we're witnessing across the country, the significant content and importance of this program, Partnership for Ethical Leadership and Integrity, could not be more timely or apropos. In a few weeks, I'll celebrate my 67th birthday. And as I approach this milestone, especially after commemorating the life of my wife Linda's dear 95-year-old mother who passed on Christmas morning, along with celebrating the first birthday of our beautiful granddaughter, Caroline. 2024 was a full circle for us. This month, the word legacy continues to come to the forefront of my mind. I thought about the wonderful opportunities and experiences afforded to Lyndon, me, and our sons through a career in the United States Army. I was sharing some of that at the table here with our guests. In addition to the places that we lived and the experiences we shared, far more than a young country boy ever thought he would see in life. What we most valued and what we most value today are the people we've met and served with and the lifelong relationships we built. One of those relationships is with General Retired Vince Brooks and his wife, Carol. Vince was a class of 1980 at West Point. And although as cadets we didn't have a program like you have tonight, Vince and I met as young captains in an organization called PERSCOM, Personnel Command in Alexandria. We were young captains. We were assignment officers. And we developed our friendship in that organization. Vince's father, Leo Brooks, Major General Leo Brooks Sr., he was a Virginia State University alum. And I would pass the hallway when I was a cadet and look at this man up on the wall, this distinguished looking man, when he was a brigadier general. And I said, wow, who is that? I would like to be like him one day, dreaming. And so our relationship formed then, and we've remained close through multiple assignments, to include forward deployed in Kuwait, where we spent Christmas. And this was, and on our respective commands, we managed the redeployment of troops out of Iraq and materiel and equipment at the conclusion of combat operations. If you remember, the president ordered all the troops to be home by Christmas. And we were on the ground there. And when we celebrated Christmas in Kuwait, we had met the mission. All those troops had gone home. And we continue to serve together and continued on at the 4-star level. Throughout our careers, I would often joke with Vince, and I'd tell him, although he attended West Point, I said, you know, your real stock comes from Virginia State. So don't forget that. Along with so many valuable lessons and experiences you all will share and take away from this weekend, my hope is that among the most important will be the relationships you develop with your fellow cadets. Take the time to connect with them. Put your device down. Take time to really connect and meet and talk and get to know these cadets, because you never know where you'll meet each other again. And whether that's in uniform, or there might be a university president, you just don't know. It may be in corporate America. So learn the people that you're with, because they're going somewhere. Take my word for it, they're going somewhere. So get to know them and be good friends. That's what I think inspired General Oliver Otis Howard, the West Point superintendent, who was the founder of Howard University. Finishing 4th in his class while attending West Point, then Cadet Howard continued to question his mission in life. A career United States Army officer and a Union Major General in the Civil War, he was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor for his actions. General Oliver was a leader for promoting higher education for freedmen. Most notably, as I mentioned, the founding of Howard University, but he went on to support other universities. And he served as its president from 1867 to 1873. He was an advocate for higher education for African Americans. And his vision, efforts, and perseverance to see that vision realized is his legacy that extends to all of us this evening. And it serves as a historical connection, as you heard from the former president of Howard University, for the collaboration between West Point and our HBCUs. This important collaboration has allowed West Point and our HBCUs to share a commitment of producing leaders of character, service, and resilience. As I look around this room tonight, I think leadership legacy is really what defines this program. The cadets are seated with some extraordinarily successful leaders. I want you to look around the table and see who you're seated with, who could have chosen to be at any other place tonight in Washington, D.C. But guess what? They chose to be here, to be with you, to sit with cadets and have conversations. These exceptional men and women who also committed the majority of their adult lives in service to our United States Army and our nation. I'm confident in saying that they also decided to attend tonight because they too are thinking about their leadership legacy. And this unique program provides an opportunity for them to personally invest in our cadets. I've had the privilege of serving in leadership roles since I was 22 years old. And since that time, I've worked for and with many extraordinary leaders, several in this room tonight. I've been able to observe, adopt, and model many leadership characteristics. The most important and consistent characteristic that I observed and I practiced was always being highly ethical and leading from a foundation of trust grounded in integrity. This clearly attributed to my career and leadership success, and in fact, I think is essential as we prepare the next generation of Army leaders. Your visits today to the museums, your visits tomorrow to the Holocaust Museum, it provides the opportunity for all of you to pause and truly reflect on the significant importance of ethical and moral leadership. The practice of making decisions that are based upon what is right for the common good and that considers the needs of others. These visits also highlight the huge and very real consequences of racism and anti-Semitism, and clearly and visibly demonstrate how hate and division can destroy individuals, communities, and in fact, nations. When I think about ethical leadership, a few words come to mind. Service, committed to something larger than yourself. Integrity, doing what's right, legally, ethically, morally. Respect, treating everyone with dignity that they deserve. Honesty, speaking and acknowledging truthfully. Fairness, operating fairly and being aware of implicit biases. Accountability, taking responsibility for your decisions and your actions, and also your mistakes, because mistakes add up to experience. I've made many. Resilient, the capacity and ability to adapt and recover from difficult situations. Most importantly, ethical leaders lead by example. Yes, cadets, leadership is hard. It's very hard. There are no shortcuts to anywhere worth going in life. It takes hard work, it takes discipline, it takes commitment. To lead soldiers requires one to think of others rather than think of him or herself. It's we and not I. It's not what's in it for me, rather it's what's in it for our team. Being a good leader requires standing up and speaking up and always doing what is right. It requires you to be the absolute very best that you can be, so that you're able to bring out the very best in others you're privileged to lead. It requires discipline, standards, integrity, competence, commitment, and most of all, good character to lead America's most precious resource, its sons and daughters. Not everyone can, nor should, be a leader. But as I look at the room tonight and all of you that are here, I'm confident you're going to rise to the occasion just by the fact that you decided to attend tonight. I'd like to take, for a moment, return to the word resilient. In life, everyone will face some form of adversity. It's not a matter of if, but when. And I've found that adversity shows up when you least expect it. And regardless of when it does, you're never quite prepared for it. When things are going very good for me, I began to start looking over my shoulder and looking around, wondering when is adversity going to show up? Showed up on Christmas morning. Adversity will show up in your life. And so you can impact when it shows up, but how you respond, you do have an opportunity to impact. Every leader in the United States Army has a moral and ethical responsibility to combat hate, prevent division, and foster unity. It is the shared values of our service and our sacrifice that uniquely defines our Army. As stated by Edwin Burke, and I quote, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men and women to do nothing." You will soon become part of the 1%. The 1% who serve our nation wearing the uniform of a United States soldier. You may easily find yourself being in the minority of your college classroom, your fraternity or sorority, your hometown neighborhood, perhaps the only person in your community who wears the uniform of a United States soldier. I encourage you to use this unique position to be an example for others. My Uncle Nat, my mother's brother, was a World War II veteran who's no longer with us. When I was a young captain, he would often tell me, "Dennis, when you come home, you wear that uniform." He wanted me to go to church in that uniform. He wanted me to show up at the school in that uniform. He said, "Be proud of that Army uniform and to let people know that you're a United States soldier." As I close, I would like to share a story about coffee beans. Like many of you, I really enjoy a cup of joe in the morning. When I was serving, coffee was also one of those things I most enjoyed late on a cold night during deployment or doing a readiness training exercise. The story goes that a young woman went to her mother and told her about her life, how things were so hard for her. She did not know how she was going to make it. And she wanted to give up. She was tired of fighting and struggling. It seemed that as one problem was solved, another one arose. Her mother took her to the kitchen and she filled 3 pots with water and placed each on high fire. Soon the pots came to a boil. In the first pot, she placed carrots. In the second, she placed eggs. And in the last pot, she placed ground coffee beans. She let them sit and boil without saying a word. In about 20 minutes, she turned off the burners. She fished out the carrots, placed them in a bowl. She pulled out the eggs. She placed those in a bowl, and then she laid the coffee out. Each reacted differently. The carrot went in strong, hard, unrelenting. However, after being subjected to the boiling water, it softened and became weak. The egg had been fragile. Its thin outer shell had protected its liquid interior. But after sitting through that boiling water, its inside became hardened. The coffee ground beans were unique, however. After they were in the boiling water, they changed the water. "Which are you?" she asked her daughter. "When adversity knocks on your door, when it really gets tough, how do you respond? Are you the carrot? Are you the egg? Or are you the coffee bean?" The world today and the geopolitical environment is one of the most challenging and complex of my lifetime. I think the senior leaders who are seated around your table would share similar sentiments. In times of challenge, our nation has needed leaders, ethical leaders of character and integrity, who step up and participate in times of challenge to solve those challenges and meet those challenges. As President Teddy Roosevelt stated in his familiar quote, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doers of deeds have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself or herself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he or she fails, at least fails while daring greatly. so that his place should never be among those cold and timid souls who neither know victory or defeat. Cadets, as you depart here tonight, be like that coffee bean. That's my challenge to you. Go out and change the world. Don't allow the world to change you. God bless you on your journey.